Hi, welcome to the Parent Primer by 5 Major Steps. I'm Leanne Gregory, the founder of 5 Major Steps, and usually my work has me speaking with high school students through workshops and online classes that help them find career direction for their future. Well, today I want to speak with you, the parents, because parents play an integral role in coaching our students toward a successful future. And whether they're a freshman in high school or a senior in high school, there are important things that you can do as a parent to help encourage, motivate, and equip them to make wise and informed decisions. So today I want to take you through all 5 steps that I take the students through and show you the role that you can play in helping your student have a successful future. So let's get started. So let me introduce you to my 3 teenagers. This is Logan. He's 15 and he's in 9th grade. Ella is 12 and she's in 7th grade. And Lydia is 17 and she will be graduating from high school this spring. So we have been in the thick of the process of making decisions about the future. And the 5 Major Steps course was birthed out of all of the research we did to try to determine how to help Lydia make wise and informed decisions. So, it seems like yesterday they were kids at career day at school, and today they're headed off to college. In fact, Lydia's school recently had a career day where the younger classes dressed up as what they wanted to be when they grew up. Here are some of the kids. They were so cute. One of them wanted to be a policeman. That's a common thing at a career fair. You also have things like fireman, doctor. We had some little girls who had some great ideas. One wanted to be a chef or a baker, and another wanted to own a spa. So, when you're that age, anything is possible. And that's fine. It's great to encourage kids that age to dream and to think of things they want to be when they grow up. But now that our kids are older and we have teenagers, we have to take those decisions a lot more seriously because the consequences are really big and the stakes are high. Now, unfortunately, many of our students are making decisions about their future career in the same way that they made a decision about what to wear for career day at school. Author Jeff Selingo agrees. In his book, There Is Life After College, he says this. He says, often students heading to college make these choices, and he's talking about choices about their college major, their future career, based on what's familiar to them from childhood. And they pick majors based on their limited experience. Then, when they're seniors in college and starting sifting through job openings, many titles can sound as if they were written in a foreign language. I agree. There are so many new careers out there, things that I had never even heard of until I started doing my research. And there are lots of things that my kids are really cut out for. I just needed to know they existed so that I could guide them in that direction. So, this is not just a question even about a career direction, but it's also a financial decision. Because with many students taking years and years to graduate college, 6 years is now the average, it is costing parents thousands and thousands of dollars as they change their major and change their career path in college. So if we can help them make these decisions sooner, not only will they be happier, but we will save thousands of dollars. So it's a win-win situation. What I've seen in my research is that too many choices plus too little guidance equals poor decisions. What I learned is that most colleges have over 100 majors to choose from, and this can cause so much confusion in students and cause them to change their major many times. Speaking of too little guidance, did you know there's only one counselor for every 491 students in the United States? No wonder we have students making poor decisions. And with the rising cost of college, this is more than just a career problem, it becomes a financial problem as well. Later, I'd like to show you just how much a poor decision can cost you and your student. But first, I'd like to give you an overview of the 5 steps that will help equip you to guide your student to make wise and informed choices for their future. So here's an overview of the 5 steps. The first step is know yourself. This involves self-awareness and assessing your strengths and your weaknesses. And obviously, those things are helpful when you're looking for a career. Most teens don't know themselves as well as they think they do, and this can be crucial in finding a career that they enjoy. Next is knowing your best environments. That involves people and places where you work best. The third thing I believe teens need to know is more about the job market, and that's something that we as parents could afford to learn more about as well. The fourth thing is knowing your budget. With the rising cost of college, the budget is more important than ever, and we don't want our students to be tied down with student loans for the rest of their life. So we need to go into college knowing our budget. And lastly, know your options. Now, we're assuming here that most of our kids are headed towards college, but there are actually other very viable options along the way or in place of college, and I'd like to help you know what those are so you can see if any of those are right for your student. So let's jump into the first step, know yourself. So how can we help our kids get to know themselves better? You know, most teens can't even identify 3 strengths and weaknesses to put on a job application. So we have seen them grow up, and we have seen their temperament and their skills and abilities develop over the years. So we're in a great position to be able to point those things out to them. Don't just assume that because you know your teen is an introvert that they know that as well. Don't assume because you know they're great with computers that they see that as something they could use in the future. I have a friend who played football in high school, and his coach once mentioned to him that he was great with his hands and said he should consider a career as a doctor or a surgeon. That set him on a path toward medical school, and today he's a surgeon. He never would have thought of that had it not been pointed out by a coach or someone that knew him well. So as those parents who know our kids probably better than they know themselves, we need to be pointing out to them areas we see them excelling in, and that can go a long way in helping them make great decisions in the future. So one of the tools that I have used in my class to help students get engaged in this process is the Myers-Briggs Personality Assessment. You may be familiar with the Myers-Briggs. It is the test that gives you a 4-letter code that helps you identify preferences and how you perceive the world and make decisions. I took this test in college for the first time, and it was really insightful into my personality and why I made certain decisions. So I think it's also helpful to have our students do this test. You can find these tests online. I do a version that's a paid version and gives a more complete report, but online there are some tests that will give you your 4-letter code. So your 4-letter code represents these 4 categories. The first is where you focus your attention. Are you an extrovert or an introvert, an E or an I? So that's a focus on the outside world or the inside world. The second letter in your code gives you information on sensing or intuition, how you take in information. Are you a step-by-step person or a big picture? Next, the way you make decisions based on that information. This is T or F, thinking or feeling, objectivity versus empathy. And the last letter in your code will be a J or a P, judging or perceiving. Do you work in a planned way, or do you have a more spontaneous approach? So when you combine those 4 letters, that gives you your Myers-Briggs code. Now, kids love taking quizzes online, so this should be an easy thing to get your kids to do. Like I said, you can go to a website called humanmetrics.com, is one of the free sites where they can take the Myers-Briggs test and get some results, not as thorough as a paid test, but enough to get them interested. And to get them even more interested, they always love this. You can go on the internet and search Myers-Briggs type grids, and they have all kinds of fun grids that show your personality type for different characters in movies, TV shows, or even novels that you enjoy. So here's My Little Pony and Star Wars, and kids love this. They love to figure out which character they are in their favorite show or book. So that's another fun way to get them engaged in this process. Now, another thing you can do to help your teen understand how they are made is to help them identify their personal values. Their personal values will always affect their career decision, and everyone lives by a certain set of values, whether they're aware of them or not. Now, our teens are still developing their values, so this is a fluid topic that you should come back to many times. But start the conversation. Having a career that doesn't line up with your values can be a real source of discontentment and unhappiness at work and at home. There is a brief values assessment online. It's not completely thorough, but it can start the conversation. You can find that at 123test.com. But even just printing out a list of values and discussing them with your teen and helping them understand how those things might affect their work and their future career can be super helpful. The second step I recommend to help your teen is to begin to help them think about the people and the places where they work best. Now, why is this important? Well, a personal story here. I hate running. Everyone said that eventually you get a runner's high and you love it. Well, it never happened for me. But I keep running anyway. Why do I do that? Well, yes, for my health, but mainly because I enjoy the people that I go running with. I enjoy catching up and talking to them, and I enjoy the place where I go running. I live in the mountains. It never gets over 80 degrees here, so it's always pleasant weather for a run. So I love the environment and I love the people, so I continue to do something that I really don't like. So the environment really does affect our satisfaction in our lives and our work, and it will affect your teen in the future. So you want to help them understand the people and the places where they work the best. So I have another great test that your teen can take online that can help them understand who they enjoy working with. It's called the Holland Code, and John Holland is the one who created this theory that different personalities prefer different environments. So you may have some interest in several different areas, but there are primarily 3 environments that you enjoy the most, and this has to do with the people who you're working with. So he has a 3-letter code called the Holland Code that identifies these environments. Now, when I have my live class with teens, I have the room divided up into different areas with different letters representing each of the 6 different categories here. So if you read the chart, you see we have the investigative people, the artistic, the social, the enterprising, conventional, and realistic. These are all different categories. You can read here the description of each one. And I have the teens decide if they entered a party and they didn't know anyone at the party, and these were the different groups they could choose from, which group would they go to first? Who would they most enjoy spending time with? Now, this may or may not be the same group they would put themselves in, but it's the people they enjoy being around. So each person goes to that corner of the room. I actually have a little activity that's something those type people would enjoy doing. Of course, the social people are playing a game, and the artistic people are doing something crafty. I have a spirograph, if you remember those, and etc. We go through the different categories. They decide which corner of the room they want to be in. Now, I tell them after 10 minutes, everyone leaves the party, and they have to choose a different corner. So they go to their next choice. We continue doing this until they have their 3-letter Holland Code. Now, of course, this is not a scientific test, but it has proven to be correct about 90% of the time. So it's just a fun way for them to discover their Holland Code. Now, you also can go on a website called 123test.com, and they also have a Holland Code test that you can take, and it will give you or your teen a 3-letter Holland Code. So that is a fun thing you can do to help your teen identify what types of people they enjoy working with. The next thing to have your teen think about is where they do their best work. So would they enjoy a large environment, like a large firm with lots of employees, or a small environment, more like a small business? Let them think if they enjoy working inside or outside. Are they energized by being behind a desk or in a cubicle? Because actually some people are. They like that environment, while some prefer being outside, and they do their best work when they have the freedom to be outside. Next, city or rural. There are certain jobs that you can only do in a big city. If you are looking for those type opportunities, you may even need to move to a particular city. They need to be aware of that. If they would like to live in the suburbs or in a rural community, they need to be aware of what jobs are available in those areas. Also, noisy or quiet. Now, my youngest daughter can study for a test while dancing around the room, singing at the top of her lungs, and having music playing in the background. I have no idea how she does this, but I have actually come to believe that that is how she does her work the best. I, on the other hand, would like the door closed and no interruptions to do my best work. So you can probably identify this about your teen and help them to see how that would affect their future. Another thing is formal or casual. This is less about how people appear at work and what they wear, and more to do with structures and procedures. Certain businesses or occupations have more structures and procedures that they follow. A policy manual, you know exactly what's expected of you and you can meet those regulations or goals. Other jobs are more for the free-spirited person who wants more freedom to create and to do things their own way. So help your teen see which of those categories fit him best. Also, stable or varied. Some people enjoy the same routine every day, while others need a more varied schedule where they can get out of the office or do something different from time to time. My husband has a job that keeps him in an office a lot of the time, working in a cubicle, and he is an extreme extrovert. The thing that keeps him alive with this job is that he gets to travel a lot. He's on the road 2 or 3 days a week, sometimes traveling and meeting different people. And because of that, he's energized, and he can do those few days that he has to do in the office, in a cubicle, that don't necessarily fit his personality. But there's enough variation that he's satisfied in his current job. The next step is to know the job market. Now, this is something that we as parents need to know more about as well, because as I said earlier, there are so many jobs out there since we graduated from college or since we finished high school that we've probably never even heard of. And there's also fields that are really on the decline. And if you graduate in those fields, you may not be able to find a job. So the best tool that I've found on the internet to research career fields and find up-to-date information is from the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics. You can find this resource at bls.gov/OOH. That stands for Occupational Outlook Handbook. On this website, you can select occupations by their pay, their education level, on-the-job training, number of new jobs projected, and projected growth rate. Each day, the site features an occupation that you may or may not have heard of and explains more about it. And it also allows you to search by occupation groups on the left-hand column. So, for example, if you know you're interested in healthcare, you can click on healthcare and you will see a list of careers in that field. You can read through this list and see the entry-level education required for that career, a summary of the job, and the median pay. So, if your teen is browsing through here and sees, oh, dentist, $158,000, that sounds great. They also need to realize that it requires a doctoral degree. But to find more about this career, they can click on dentist and it will tell the entry-level salary, the training, how to become one. It will also tell you the outlook if it is projected to grow. For example, this job is projected to grow 18%. It says that is much faster than average. The average growth rate right now for all occupations is about 10.8%. So anything above that is really good. Now, of course, if you can find a growth rate of 40% or more, that's even better. And I'll show you how you can do that. So when you go back to the home page, you will see farther down on the page, fastest growing occupations. So as you look at this list, it will show you the growth rate from 2014 to 2024 expected for these different careers. Now, here's one we've probably never thought of or heard of, a wind turbine service technician. If I'd like to know more about that, I can go to that site and find all the information I need, the work environment, how to become one, the pay, the job outlook, the state and area data, and even similar occupations. You can probably see how helpful this could be in researching the job market. This is really all you need, and it's what most websites and universities use when they're researching and finding data about various occupations. So there is so much information here that it does help to try to narrow down the fields that you're interested in, but even to just get your student to browse this site and start to look at what some of the options are can get them started on the right track to finding the right career for them. Now, once your teen has thought through step 1 and 2 and done some research into possible fields of interest, the number one way to help them find a career that's a good fit for them is through informational interviews and job shadowing. This is something that's often overlooked, but I think can be probably the most helpful thing in helping them understand if something really is a good fit. Unfortunately, many students don't do this type of thing until their 3rd or 4th year of college, sometimes even their first day on the job, and they realize this is really not a good fit. I don't like this environment, or I don't like the people I'm working with, or this just doesn't fit my personality type. That's very unfortunate because they've spent a lot of money getting to that point. So you can save a lot of money now by having them as high school students find careers they're interested in or think they're interested in and sit down with people who actually work in those fields and ask them some intelligent questions to find out more. Now, after they do this informational interview, if they discover that this is something they think they are still interested in, they can ask if they could have the opportunity to job shadow and actually go and watch this person in action or see what this person does on a daily basis. Here are some of the questions that I recommend teens ask in an informational interview. Now, ideally, you could do this in person, but it can also be done over the phone. And I know that we as parents have lots of contacts. So if your teen is interested in a career field, probably through your network of contacts, you can find someone they could interview. If not, you can always go onto Facebook and ask your friends if they know anybody in that field. And there should always be a way to find someone that you could talk to and ask these questions. First, they could ask what kind of education or training is necessary for this type work. How did you get this job, and what kind of experience and preparation helped you the most? They could ask, what are your responsibilities in your position? What do you like most and least about this job, and what kind of stress do you deal with? And knowing what you know now, what advice do you have for getting into this line of work? I would also ask what personality qualities or abilities are important for doing well in this kind of work. And can you recommend the best entry-level jobs to get started in this line of work? And finally, what types of extracurricular activities or summer jobs would help prepare me for a job in this field? So I believe that if teens can narrow down jobs into a few that they're interested in and start doing informational interviews while they're still in high school, and then follow that up with job shadowing, they will be leaps and bounds ahead of most of the college students that I have met over the past 25 years who come to school not having any of this knowledge about the career that they want to explore. Well, the fourth step involves money. So whether we like it or not, money is something that's definitely going to affect career decisions, whether it be which career you choose or which college you choose to go to get to that career. We want to make sure that the money we're spending for a degree is worth the degree that we earn. And getting weighed down by college debt that will prevent you from moving into adulthood is a problem that many college graduates are facing today. So to avoid that, you need to be aware of your budget, you need to be aware of the salary that you expect to make when you graduate, and you need to be aware of how much college actually costs. You can see here that the public in-state university in 2015-16 for tuition and fees only was $8,957. Now you need to double that when you consider room and board and other expenses. Out-of-state universities are $20,000 or more, and private schools start around $32,000 and go up from there. So college is expensive, and when I started doing my research, I had to ask, is college even worth it anymore? Many people are actually asking this question, and there are a lot of great books about that right now that I've read. And here's what I've discovered. Someone with a college degree will earn on average $2.3 million over the course of a working lifetime, which is $1 million more than the lifetime earnings of someone with just a high school diploma. However, adding just 1 year to your college education can cost you $20,000 to $60,000. That's in tuition, fees, room and board, and lost wages. Most students now are taking 6 years to finish their degree. So that is adding $40,000 to $100,000 to your already expensive college degree, sometimes making your degree not even worth what you paid for it. And this is something you really need to consider. You need to research and understand how much you're paying for your degree and how much that degree will pay off in the long run. So let's take a quick look at the unequal earning power of common majors. You see at the top, the petroleum engineer is making around $110,000 as a starting salary, which is not bad at all. But when you go down to elementary education, you see the salary hovers closer to $30,000, maybe $33,000 a year as an average starting salary in the United States. Obviously, these salaries differ by state and by district, but just as a general guide, our students need to understand that certain majors are going to have much higher earnings starting off than others. So when they're considering spending 6 years and $80,000 to get the degree, they need to realize how much it will be worth when they're finished. They also need to be aware of the danger of student loans. The reality is that 70% of all students take out loans to help pay for college. The average amount borrowed is around $32,000, but some students borrow much more. And remember, lenders are in the business of urging students to borrow as much as possible, not of warning them of the financial consequences. As parents, we need to make sure our students are aware that every dollar they borrow for college is a dollar that they will be unable to spend to buy essentials such as a car, a house, to start a family, or put in retirement savings when they graduate. We don't want them to get bogged down and chained down with student debt that is going to follow them around for years and years and years. So financial aid is too big of a topic for this short seminar, but I do want to show you a brief illustration of how you can determine the amount of money that is safe to borrow for your student if that's necessary, based on the salary they expect to make when they graduate. So most financial advisors would advise that students should not borrow more than 2/3 of their annual starting salary. Now remember, you can find the annual starting salary for every career you can imagine in the Occupational Outlook Handbook. So when you multiply that times 2/3, that would give you the amount that most investors and investment counselors would say is wise to borrow, not to borrow more than that. And of course, if you don't have to borrow at all, that would be great. But let's look at the difference it makes depending on what your starting salary will be. For example, if you plan to major in chemical engineering, the average starting salary is $68,200. That means that student could technically afford to borrow $45,466, that would be a realistic amount that they could pay back based on their starting salary. But here, if you have another student at the very same university but with a different major, let's say child and family studies, their starting salary is only $30,300. They cannot afford to borrow the same amount as the chemical engineer for a degree from the same university because they simply won't be able to pay it back as easily. And I would recommend they only borrow $20,000, which is less than half of what the chemical engineering student can borrow. So you see that formulas like this can help students understand their budget for college, how much their degree is worth, and how they're going to pay for it. Many students make the mistake of thinking about paying for their loans after they get out of school, when they first realize how much all those things cost that their parents have been paying for all those years. So I would encourage you to sit down with them, work through this formula, look up some of the salaries, and determine how much you believe it would be safe for them to borrow. Now, it would be great if none of us had to take out student loans to pay for our students' college degree. It would be great if they all qualified for huge scholarships or grants. But the reality is that's not the case. So here's my number one way to save money on college, even if you don't qualify for those scholarships or grants. And that's this: graduate in 4 years. If and when your student does go to college, make it their goal to beat the odds. Like we saw earlier, the odds of graduating in 4 years are not in their favor. Only 19% of those who start college will graduate in that amount of time. If you want to save money on college, one of the best ways to do that is by having your student graduate on time or even early. With one extra year of college costing anywhere from $20,000 to $65,000, you need to make it your goal to have your student finish in 4 years. Scholarships are great, but winning a $20,000 scholarship is much harder than planning for an on-time graduation. So here are my secrets for graduating in 4 years. First, don't wait until college to figure out what you want to do with your life. Spend time during high school discovering interests, skills, and abilities and learning about different careers. Encourage your student to take courses like the 5 Major Steps course that helps them to plan their path before they get into college and start spending money. Next, pick the right major the first time. I give a career surveyor test in my class that helps students start to narrow down their career interests so that they can investigate those during the summers and during school breaks by interviewing people and job shadowing, and they have a much higher chance of picking the right major when they enter school. Students are notorious for changing their college major over and over, and every time they do that, they lose class credits and they need additional credits that will delay their graduation. Same goes for the right school. If they can choose the right school the first time by doing good research, understanding all the factors that they need to consider with a school, then they will save time by graduating on time. If they have to switch schools during their college career, they'll likely lose credits, have to accumulate additional credits, and that will delay their graduation and cost more money. Next would be start early with dual enrollment. If your student hasn't already started with dual enrollment at a local community college, I encourage you to look into it. Each state has different rules and laws about dual enrollment, but it is a great way for them to get ahead and go ahead and get some college credit under their belt before they actually start.
That way, your student can start with, let's say, 30 hours of college credit, which is a full year, and that can give them the flexibility to graduate in 3 years or to take a lighter load. And finally, something most students aren't aware of, and many parents either, 15 hours is a full class load. Now, 12 hours usually counts as a full-time student, leading most people to believe that if you take 12 hours per semester, you will graduate on time, but that's not the case. In order to obtain the 120 hours needed for graduation, you need to take 15 hours a semester. If you don't do that, you'll delay your graduation until you have the 120 hours that you likely need to graduate. So we need to encourage our students that 15 hours a semester is the minimum course load they can take if they plan to graduate on time. Now we arrive at step 5, know your options. After high school, your student will have many decisions to make, and they will need to be able to determine which of those options are best for them, whether it be their college major, which college they will attend, or if they will attend college at all. So I'd like to show you a few ways you can help them to sort through their options and narrow them down into some realistic ideas for their future.
This chart shows just a few of the options that students have when they finish high school. Those would include community college degrees, a gap year, trade school, and a certification program, or going directly into college. And also there are things like the military or just going directly into the work world or an apprenticeship. One option that's worth seriously considering is community college associate degrees. Obviously, these degrees come with a much lower cost of tuition, a flexible schedule that allows students to work while they're in school and potentially even save money for a 4-year degree. It helps them explore their options in an environment that is much more flexible and much more affordable if they decide to change their direction. And basically, it becomes a better return on your investment. Most of the classes students take their first 2 years of college are core classes that they can take at the community college and get out of the way before they start the classes that are specific to their major. So a community college degree is great. Some students see it as an end in itself, and it can be. For example, the dental hygiene degree is a 2-year degree, which is much less expensive than a 4-year degree and has a great return on your investment. So it's worth looking into the degrees you can receive at a community college and see if that is an option or an option for the first 2 years to save money to pay for the next 2. Another path that some students should take is a trade school certification. There are many vocational skills that are in high demand today, and there are different ways to gain certifications in those fields, and many of them lead to high-paying jobs. So I would encourage your student to look into certifications that they could pursue and that would lead directly into a career in much less time than a 4-year college degree. And for some students, this is the right solution. Another great option after high school is taking a gap year. Now, this is not as familiar a concept in the United States as it is in Great Britain, but it's gaining popularity. Malia Obama announced that she would be taking a gap year before she started Harvard next fall. And contrary to popular belief, a gap year is not a year off, but it is a planned, structured year of learning outside of the classroom. Now, many American parents fear that their child will not return and finish college. However, that is simply not true. One study puts the return on college rate at 90%. That's a great return. It's encouraged by schools like Harvard, Princeton, and UNC because of the many benefits that it offers. Some of those benefits include students being more likely to finish college in 4 years than those who enroll directly after high school. And we've already seen that that can save a lot of money. It ends with higher GPAs, more focused students, and an ability to contextualize formal education using real-world experiences. In fact, 60% of gap year participants said the experience influenced or confirmed their choice of a major. So you can see how all of these things help students make the most of their college education by being more informed before they start. My daughter will be taking a gap year this fall where she'll travel to 3 different continents and 5 countries over a period of 9 months. And there are lots of programs out there that allow students to experience the world and understand themselves and their place in the world better. And I highly recommend gap years. The other option, of course, would be going directly into a 4-year college or university. Now that's tricky because there are over 3,700 colleges to choose from in the United States, and that's a lot of options. If the four-year college is the next step for your student, you will need to be able to narrow down their choices. I'd like to show you a great tool that will be helpful in narrowing down your options as you search for colleges. When you go to bigfuture.collegeboard.org, you can create an account, and your student may already have one if they've taken the SAT, so ask them first. You can go here to College Search under Find Colleges, and you can find this page which will allow you to filter your college options based on different criteria that they list here under Filters on the left-hand side of the screen. Now you see that there are 3,757 colleges to choose from, which is a little overwhelming. But you can start to narrow that down based on these factors here on the left. So first, for example, let's look at location. If it's important to you to be near home, let's say no more than 100 miles from home, then you can enter your zip code and that distance, and it will show you schools in that area. If you'd like to stay in your state, you can also select your state. When you close this window, it will have narrowed down the schools. You see I went from 3,757 to just 86 schools, which is much more reasonable. Now, if I'd like to select type of school, let's say I know I'm interested in a four-year college, even if I already have several hours of credit, even a year of credit from a community college, I still am interested in going to a four-year school. Let's say I'm interested mainly in public schools that are medium-sized and co-ed. Now you see these sliders on the left allow you to say which factors are must-haves and which are just wants. So the medium-sized, I'm going to move to a want. And the public, there could be private schools that I would be interested in if the financial aid was good, so I'm going to move that to a want as well. When I close that window, it's further narrowed down my schools to only 47 results. Now I can also go down and I can use any of these filters to further select a school that's right for me. I would highly suggest making sure that the school you're interested in has the major that you're interested in. Many students start school and decide to change their major and find that they can't even study their new major at the school that they've chosen, and they have to change schools and delay their graduation. Now, I wouldn't even let my child start school if they have no idea what they want to study, because it's much too expensive to find out as you're in the process. I know people think college is a time to find yourself, but I think there are a lot better ways to find that information without spending thousands and thousands of dollars to do it. So let's say my student is interested in business, so I want to narrow it to schools that have a business program. If there are other things like ROTC or study abroad or honors programs that are important to me, I can also list those things. So now I have 40 results. I could continue to do this. I'm not going to do it for sake of time, but now I want to show you how you can find out more about each of these schools. So I'm going to look at the list. I see that I have 7 schools that are 100% matches and some that are not 100% but are close. So I'm going to select Appalachian State University because actually that is in the town where I live. When I look at this, it tells me more about the school, and it tells me that 71% graduate within 6 years. Remember that the average graduation now is calculated by 6 years, and you have to do some digging to find 4-year graduation rates at all. But 71% is not bad. It tells me the average financial aid package, and it tells me the tuition and fees for that school. It tells me also that it has a business program, which was important to me. So now I can go and add that to my college list by clicking this button, and it puts it here at the bottom of the page. I can continue to make a list, and that will allow me to compare all the schools that I'm interested in. So I can do the same with other schools, and they will be filtered according to the filters I set on the left-hand side. So I can look now at East Tennessee State University. I see the graduation rate is much lower, which is not great. I can see the financial aid package is not listed here, but the tuition and fees are. So if I want to add that to my list, I do the same thing and add it to my college list. So in the end, you can have a list of colleges that you want to visit or explore more. When you type on my colleges, they'll come up and you can see them at the bottom. So this is a great tool to play around with and filter schools and find ones that you may not even know about that could be a good fit for your student, so that they can choose the right school the first time and avoid changing schools or changing majors because they're at the wrong school. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. I want to sum it up really quickly, and then I want to offer you a resource that I think will be a help to you. First, we talked about knowing yourself, and that involved the personality assessment and just basic self-analysis so that teens can know themselves better and therefore make wiser decisions about their future. Second, we talked about knowing your best environment. That was knowing the people and the places where your teen would work the best. Next, knowing the job market. We looked at a resource that can help you analyze different career fields for their salary potential, for their growth potential, and to understand if that field would be right for your teen. And next we talked about knowing your budget. I think it's important for teens to understand the enormous expense that college is and make sure that the degree they're seeking is worth the price that they're paying for it. And lastly, knowing your options, whether that be college, community college, a gap year, or something different. Teens need to be aware of all the options that are available to them. Now, I think you as a parent are crucial in walking them through this process, but I've also seen that it can help teens to have an outside person holding them accountable and keeping them motivated. I know that's true for my kids. So I created an online course for students that helps take them through each of these 5 steps. My online course is divided into 5 sessions and takes place over 5 weeks. All the students start the class during the same week and complete the lessons on the same schedule. However, when they want to complete those lessons during that week is up to them. Students access the course through my online school where they'll have access to all the videos for each of the 5 steps. They'll take 1 step per week and watch the videos for that session. Students also have access to a downloadable workbook that will help them through each of the 5 steps as they start to analyze themselves and the careers that are right for them.
One of my favorite parts of the course involves 2 assessments that we take from an outside organization that give very extensive reports about both personality type and career interest areas. The first one is called the Typefinder Personality Test, and it is related to the Myers-Briggs Code. But it not only gives you your code, it also gives 10 pages of information about how that code affects the way you appear to others, the way you work, your relationship style, and other factors. It's so fun to see students look at these reports. They get so excited to see careers that fit their personality type and to see different aspects of their personality that they maybe never realized before. So it's always like teaching someone to read. When they see this, they're so excited, their eyes light up, and they open up a world of possibilities of things that they may want to pursue that they've never imagined. Now, the career surveyor takes their top interest areas and shows them careers that fit into those areas. For example, persuading, helping, organizing. It will even tell them career areas they need to avoid based on their answers in the test. Now, perhaps my favorite part of the career assessment is section 2, where it lists careers to explore. It goes through each of your interest areas and it lists careers that would be right for you based on your interests. Now, these are all listed from the Occupational Outlook Handbook that we looked at earlier, but they're narrowed down into the careers that fit your particular interest and personality. So you can also bookmark each of these things that seem to be something you want to investigate more and make a saved career list that you can look into and do more research in the future. And this is even more exciting. It lists the fastest growing careers specifically for you based on your interest profile. Now, I know that we saw the fastest growing and highest earning careers listed in the Occupational Outlook Handbook, but those were generalities based on all careers that people could pursue. This is specific to your student and their interest and their personality type. So this is much more helpful than just your basic overview of which careers are growing in America right now. So they can take this and narrow down career fields that they want to pursue or look into more and know that they're looking at ones that are actually going to present job opportunities when they graduate and can help pay for themselves.
Finally, we synthesize all of the information on a career matrix that helps them narrow down the careers they want to explore. They look at their personality profile, their values, their environments, their job analysis, and their salary analysis to help them to decide which are the top career fields that they want to look into more. Now, I know it can sometimes be a problem to keep students motivated, so I've created a private Facebook group where I will engage with students during their 5-week course and offer prizes, feedback, and answer any questions they might have. They can log on to the group anytime during the week and post their updates or answer questions that I've asked in the video or ask their own questions. And I know we want the students to be actively engaged in this process, and that is my goal through this group and through the prize giveaways, is to keep them actively engaged in the process so that we're not the one just pushing them along the path. I also encourage students to take part in my follow-up program through my website at 5majorsteps.com. This is free for all the students who complete my course, and they just go to the members only section of the website. They enter a password and they'll be given access to resources and challenges that I've set up to keep them motivated. The first challenge that I encourage them to complete is Wise Counsel. This challenge encourages them to take the initiative to sit down with you, their parent, to ask questions that would help them better understand themselves. Things that we talked about in the first step, like what adjectives would you use to describe me? What skills have you seen in me? What could I do to develop these skills? This puts them in the driver's seat and taking the initiative about these important decisions. And they need to be taking the initiative and not just being pushed along by us. So that's Wise Counsel. I also encourage them to do informational interviews, and I tell them every step that they need to take. The goal, finding someone to interview, how to interview, what to ask, and even how to write a thank you note. When they complete that challenge and submit their report, they're also entered to win. And the last challenge is job shadowing, and I explain to them how to set that up and what it should look like. And when they complete that challenge, they also receive an entry into the drawing for that month. So these are ways that I have created to keep students engaged and motivated in this process, and to keep us from having to nag and push them down this road, because it's a big decision and we want them to make it wisely, but teens are not always motivated to do that. I try to make this course exciting and interesting and interactive so that they stay engaged in the process and they want to be involved in making these big decisions. So students who are part of my online class work at their own pace during the 5-week period to complete each of the 5 steps. They watch the short video and complete the worksheets, as well as report into the Facebook group to ask questions and to get feedback, as well as motivation, and win some prizes. They also have access to the 2 scientifically validated personality and career tests that I give from a separate website. Those are paid tests that are part of their tuition, and those tests alone are worth the price of the course. They also have outside accountability from me instead of you, and motivation by winning prizes, and motivation to speak with you and to take the initiative about these important decisions. So I would love to have your student as part of my course if you think that would be helpful to them. It starts soon, and I only have a few seats because I like to keep the classes small so I can interact with the students and give them more personal advice. My online course is divided into 5 sessions and takes place over 5 weeks. All the students start the class during the same week and complete the lessons on the same schedule. However, when they want to complete those lessons during that week is up to them.